Inspired to Learn, Kansas Stories. Across Kansas, educators and students are inspired to learn. We can look in every corner of our state, from Hiawatha to Hugoton, from Brewster to Baxter Springs, and from Caldwell up to Concordia. The size of the district or school also makes no difference. Educators are inspired to help students become successful adults. Learning Forward Kansas is excited to share this video series with Kansas educators. The videos celebrate Kansas educators plus inform and inspire us as our Kansas colleagues lead professional learning. We have explored why professional learning matters in our first video. Now in this video, we will examine what does professional learning look like. What does it look like in your district? In future videos, we will focus on how effective learning is being accomplished across Kansas. What professional learning changes our practice? What professional learning changes the practice of our superintendents, our central office leaders, our principals, our coaches, our team leaders, our teachers? What professional learning changes all educators' practice? What professional learning inspires growth in our practice?
I also think it's important that Kansas educators are some of the strongest in the country, and I think having exploring what makes us great and defining what can make us better, and being willing to, we talk about being lifelong learners and creating lifelong learners, and we can't do that when we're not willing to do that. And so stepping back and saying, here's where I am in my professional career, and here's where I want to be, and what kind of educator can I be for the kids in my classroom every single day. I think in Kansas we do a really great job of that. I think we kind of expect that of each other. It's not the flavor of the week. It really is, how am I improving my practice to be the very best I can be for my kids every day?
It takes time. You definitely have to build relationships and do a lot of team building activities within your professional learning times that you have together, and have time to laugh and have fun.
The standards for professional learning outline the conditions that strengthen our educator effectiveness. Yes, professional learning is included in every R of the KESA, our new accreditation model. Again, these 7 standards work in partnership with one another to focus on educator learning that leads to student success. They create a professional learning that is interactive, relevant, sustained, and embedded in everyday practice. The standards also ensure professional learning that contributes to each educator's professional practice, regardless of our role. Let's look at each of them. Learning communities, leadership, resources, data, learning designs, implementation, and outcomes. Each of these 7 standards or conditions is equally important, but their real strength occurs when all 7 work together to increase our effectiveness and the results for all of our students. As you examine the standards, consider, what does professional learning look like in your team, in your school or district? What are both the strengths and the challenges that your team, building, or district faces as you view the effectiveness of your professional learning? What do the standards of professional learning tell us about identifying, planning, delivering, and supporting effective professional learning that changes our practice? What actions do you see in these standards for you and your colleagues? pause now to dig into the components of each standard. Let's hear from a teacher leader, Jana Moeller, as she shares the work of a 6 through 12 science learning team. As you watch and listen, can you identify the standards for professional learning that Jana mentions as she shares their work? Do you see learning communities, leadership, resources, data, learning designs, implementation, and outcomes? Again, consider, what does effective professional learning look like?
Today we spent some time getting together vertically from 6 through 12. It's time that we definitely needed to handle today because of us just digging in on our own grade level. We really needed the global view of what was going on. And we discussed how important it was to vertically align based on our students' performance and our students' achievement, and that we didn't want to leave any students in gaps that might be happening because they might have a difficult time connecting those dots. Professionally, we bring a lot to the table when it comes to developing this stuff. People are willing to question, people are willing to ask, what does this mean, where should this be? It's messy, and sometimes the flow changes in the middle. So when I started, I gave directions, and in the middle of it they said, wait a minute, this is maybe not be the best. So we changed, kind of morphed how this is going to look, and it will be a much better product for our lower grade bands to look at.
When you think about professional learning, either that you have experienced yourself or that you have facilitated, what are the characteristics of effective professional learning that support change in our knowledge, our skills, our dispositions, the culture of our building or our team, and or our practice? The professional learning is sustained over time. It is meaningful work for the learner. It is a collaborative learning experience with our colleagues. It is job-embedded learning, part of our daily work as individuals, teams, or buildings. It is data-driven. The dialogue from looking and studying the data deepens our understandings. It is classroom focused on student success. And there is time for us to practice, and it includes feedback opportunities. These collective characteristics connect educator learning to student success. As you listened to Jana describe their day of learning, you witnessed the journey of learning. There is a difference between knowing the path and walking it. The science team experienced quality professional learning. So now we ask the question again, what does effective professional learning look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? We want to see learning that is collaborative. There's a collaborative culture of learning. It is not done in isolation. We also want to see and hear active engagement. The participants, the learners, are involved, whether they're researching or creating, whatever they are doing, there's active engagement and their dendrites are dancing. The facilitator is modeling the learning. And once we learn something, we want to apply it. So apply it into our own situation and our own learning, moving from knowing to doing. Differentiation is also important. We see that there are sometimes options and that we have voice and choice of how we learn. We also see and hear that participants, the learners, are giving time to process, think time regarding their own learning. Feedback is throughout the learning. Time to think about and share with each other. It's corrective, it's timely, it's specific, and it's non-evaluative. And throughout our learning, we want time for reflection. We see people who are reflecting on their own learning.
So it's never a one and done. It's always a how do we continue to bring that back to life? Because sustaining something is way more challenging, gives you better opportunities than just, well, we did that in a bit, now let's go on to the next piece of professional learning. Embedding in what we do, bringing it to life, giving it legs, that's the important part, because that's where it changes instruction for kids.
I also want to make sure that I can learn new strategies or new practices in the classroom, so that possibly something that I haven't been doing is just the trigger that the students need to achieve well. And then I want to have a chance to collaborate with my fellow colleagues, so that as a middle school teacher, I can collaborate with my middle school staff, and we can see that if students are having a hard time with certain practices, what we can do to adjust those. Because again, we want to make sure that what we're doing in the classroom and what we're teaching the students is going to have an impact on their achievement.
So last year at the end of the year, we sat down and made a list of things that we were interested in learning more about. And then at the beginning of this year, there were 4 topics. And then each of us were able to choose which of those 4 areas we wanted to know more about. And then we have worked the entire year during PD time on that specific area, so we could really delve into it. So as the gifted facilitator in the high school, I was very interested in PBL, because that's what I do anyway. And so I wanted to go in and figure out how can I make that an even better experience than what we have currently. And being able to really dive into depth into that topic over the course of the entire year has allowed me to really implement it into my classroom in a very positive manner. And the students have noticed that as well. They have given me very positive feedback in order to continue to make it grow and develop based upon what I have learned. Other teachers have explored other areas that were of specific interest to them in their classroom, and again have been able to make it something that's relevant to what they are doing specifically.
Would you say there's also an element of self-direction to it?
Yes, absolutely. I have done a lot of on my own behind the scenes, just because I wanted to know more than what we had available within that time span of PD time. And so I would take the resources that we had available, and we have it all online, so we can go back in and grab it anytime we want to, and can go back in and dig deeper even than what we were able to do within the context of that.
We finished. Everyone in our building has been through at least once. Several have been through more than one, and they love it, and I've got a lot of positive comments about this is probably some of the best professional development I've been involved in a while, simply because it was self-directed. And they came away with the results that they needed or wanted from that, and then they could implement that. And then I think one of the things they probably enjoyed more than anything else was then the sharing out in our staff meetings, because they got to get up and talk about it. They got to brag on their peers. They got to talk about how they had taken that stuff back and how they had implemented it, so they got an opportunity maybe to indirectly, backhandedly brag about themselves a little bit, but they got to talk about what they picked up. And so I can tell you that in our building, the advantages have really been big, because it's been not just what the goal was, and the goal of this was for teachers to improve their own practice. That was the bottom line. But what it's done is it's created better camaraderie. It's changed the building climate. There's less close the door and I'm doing my stuff and you do your stuff. There's a lot less of that. There's more sharing. It's created more of that collaborative spirit, which is what we've all been striving for so long.
Let's review our continuous improvement model. As you examine each component more closely, dig deeper to decide what is required for each one in your school or in your team. What professional learning will move us forward as we examine the 8 components and implement each one? Questions might include, what data do we have? What additional data might we want? from the data, where are the gaps? From looking at the data, what are our goals? What are we currently doing? What changes will accomplish our goals? What new knowledge or skills do we want? What actions do we want to occur? Again, back to what data might we use to assess our progress? How do we know we're moving forward? What other questions do you have as you dig deeper into planning your school improvement? We know that learning occurs within learning communities committed to continuous improvement, collective responsibility, and focusing on a goal.
Our professional learning communities meet twice a month. We look at that as building wide. We have our core teachers and as well as our encore or specialist teachers and joining us in those conversations because we believe it takes a team to move all of our students forward. We meet for an hour after school on Wednesday afternoons, and that's our time to reflect together, grow together. We ask that that's 1 hour that they put aside to learn, reflect, and bring things that they can implement into their classroom.
We did a book study on creating language-rich classrooms. And so we had a group of about 8 teachers who studied the book. We met twice a week, every other week, and just had conversations about what was in the book, but not just conversations about what was in the book, but what's next. Now what? So now what? What are we going to do with this information that we have? Because so many times the book goes back on the shelf, nothing gets done with that professional learning. So our goal is what's going to get done with that professional learning. Where is this going to go?
We know that leadership matters. When effective professional learning exists, leaders are visible, they're articulating the goals, they're advocating for adequate resources, they're supporting implementation and modeling their own desire to improve by participating in continuous learning activities. They build the capacity in their buildings by offering feedback, support, asking lots of questions, and sharing the responsibility. In their own words, let's listen to Kansas leaders share their insights and expertise.
Yeah, I think it's important to have that teacher involvement and teacher ownership and teachers at the table with their professional learning. The key part of that is having leaders involved in that also. The leaders can't sit in the back of the room, can't sit on the side of the wall. They can't just be directing it from far. They have to have their hands in it too. They have to go through the process with the educators. They have to read the books with the teachers. They have to go to the same conferences. They have to set the vision. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, they are the ones who hold us accountable.
So as superintendent of schools, I have to be the person who transforms learning and promotes it, motivates and coaches professional learning in my district.
Well, from the very beginning, we look upon our principals as instructional leaders. It's the number one thing on their job description. So that's a focus area for us, and they have to model that kind of behavior. They can't just send teachers to things and hope that something sticks. They have got to demonstrate that they're growing as well and that we're in this together.
So we're learning that personalized professional learning is important. We spent time in our opening session with our certified staff, letting them identify what they want to accomplish this year, and we're as a leadership team focused on helping them accomplish that through a more personalized approach.
As leaders, team leaders, coaches, principals, all leaders begin planning professional learning, there are many factors to consider as they select a learning design or learning designs. Here are a few factors for you to consider. First, and I'm sure most important, what are your goals? What learning goals do you have that you want the participants to learn or be able to do? Second, what are the characteristics of the learners in this group? How do they learn? What has been their experience? So what are their characteristics? Next, what is their comfort with the learning process? Is this something that they're very comfortable with? They do it all the time, and so it's an easy thing for them. And also, what is their comfort with working with one another? Next, what is their familiarity with the content? Is this just an extension of what they already know, so it will be getting better at something they're very comfortable with, or is it all new content? What about the change? Is this change transformational? What is the size of this change, or is it not? So think about the size of the expected change as you proceed. Educators' work environment. What is the environment? When is the learning going to happen? Does it happen on a professional learning day? Does it happen during the summer? Is it happening after school? Is it happening during their PLCs? So what is the environment of the educators who are going to be learning? Lastly, resources. What resources are there to support this learning? We have examined characteristics and conditions of what effective professional learning looks like and listened to Kansas educators share their success stories. What does professional learning look like in your school? Learning Forward Kansas is here to support you and your learning. Together, we achieve great teaching and learning every day and student success.